Millionaire invited Waitress to laugh at her, but when she arrived like a queen, everyone froze. Amanda Johnson was serving afternoon coffee when Brandon Cooper tossed the golden invitation onto the wet table, making sure to speak loudly enough for the entire restaurant to hear. The humiliation was public and calculated, every word chosen to wound. "I want you at my charity event next Saturday," he said, smiling cruelly as he adjusted the gold watch on his wrist. "It'll be a good opportunity for people like you to see how the important folks live." A heavy silence fell over the small home flavor restaurant in downtown Philadelphia. Amanda felt every table staring at her, some with pity, others with morbid curiosity. The coffee-stained apron felt like it weighed a ton on her shoulders, and she knew Brandon had chosen that moment deliberately. "Why are you inviting me?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Because I enjoy showing simple people like you that there's a different world out there," he replied, pulling a $50 bill from his wallet and leaving it on the table. "Keep the change. You'll need it to buy something decent to wear." Amanda picked up the invitation with trembling hands. The paper was thick, with embossed gold letters announcing the annual Cooper Foundation Charity Gala at the city's prestige country club. She knew the event would gather all the local elite, people she only saw in the society pages of the newspaper. "I'll be there," she said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. Brandon laughed, clapping slowly as if applauding a joke. "Great. It'll be fun watching you try to fit in with real people." He left the restaurant, trailing expensive cologne and muffled laughter. Amanda stood frozen, clutching the invitation under the weight of curious stares. Mrs. Wilson, the cook and her only friend there, approached with a dish rag in hand. "Sweetheart, you're not really going, are you?" she whispered. "That man just wants to humiliate you." Amanda folded the invitation and tucked it into her apron pocket. On the outside, she tried to appear strong, but inside a mix of anger and despair made her want to cry. Brandon Cooper owned one of the largest construction companies in the region, heir to a fortune built over generations. To him, she was just entertainment. "Yes, Mrs. Wilson, I won't give him the satisfaction he wants." But as the hours passed and she kept serving tables, reality set in. How could she attend a high society event? She had no suitable clothes, knew no one, and didn't even understand how to behave in that world. Her waitress salary barely covered basic bills. When she got home that night, the two-room apartment in an old downtown building felt even smaller than usual. Amanda lived there with her mother, Mrs. Ruth, who had been bedridden for 3 years after a stroke left her with severe disabilities. The cramped space smelled of medicine and frustration. "How was work today, dear?" Mrs. Ruth asked, trying to sit up in bed. Amanda hesitated. She didn't want to worry her mother, who already suffered from relying on her for everything. Since her father abandoned them when she was 16, Amanda had shouldered the household alone, working in factories, diners, offices, always in low-paying jobs that required little education. "Same as always, Mom. Nothing special." But Mrs. Ruth knew her daughter too well. "Something happened. I can see it on your face." Amanda sat on the edge of the bed and told her about the invitation. She watched her mother's eyes fill with indignant tears. "That man is cruel, Amanda. Don't go. He just wants to hurt you." "Mom, I have to. If I don't, he'll tell everyone he intimidated me." "And I'm not a coward." Mrs. Ruth held her daughter's hand. "Do you remember when you were little and said you'd be a teacher? That you'd have a different life?" Amanda felt a tightness in her chest. She did remember. She had studied hard, been the best student in school, dreamed of college. But when her father left and her mother fell ill, those dreams had to wait. First they were postponed, then forgotten. "The dreams changed, Mom." "They didn't change, sweetheart. They were just set aside for a while." In the early hours, Amanda lay awake thinking. How could she go to the event without making a fool of herself? She didn't have money for a dress, didn't know anyone from high society, didn't understand the rules of that world. Every obstacle seemed insurmountable. The next morning, the phone rang early. It was a woman's voice she didn't recognize. "Amanda Johnson." "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Olivia Johnson. I'm your sister." Amanda nearly dropped the phone. "Sister? What sister? I think you have the wrong number. No, I don't. I'm your father's daughter, Robert Johnson. He told me about you before he passed. The silence that followed was heavy. Amanda had never known her father had other daughters. Mrs. Ruth, who was in the kitchen, sensed something serious was happening. What do you want? Amanda asked, still in shock. I heard what happened yesterday at the restaurant. I have friends who were there. I want to help you. Why? Because we're sisters, and because that Brandon Cooper needs to learn a lesson. Amanda didn't know if she should trust her. Her whole life, it had just been her and her mother against the world. Suddenly, a sister she never knew existed was offering help. It seemed too good to be true. How did you know where I work? It wasn't hard. Philadelphia isn't that big. Can I come see you this afternoon? Amanda hesitated. Part of her was curious, another part was afraid. But the sting of humiliation was still fresh, and maybe she did need help. Come to the restaurant at 3. When Olivia arrived at Home Flavor, Amanda immediately noticed the differences between them. Olivia was elegant, well-dressed, with manicured nails and hair styled at an expensive salon. She seemed about the same age, but lived in a completely different world. I work as a stylist in New York, Olivia explained, ordering just a coffee. I design clothes for some celebrities and important people. And why did you never reach out before? Olivia sighed, stirring sugar into her coffee. Our father told me you didn't want anything to do with him, that you had a new life, and it was better to leave it at that. I only recently found out he lied. Amanda felt a mix of anger and sadness. Their father had lied to both of them, creating an unnecessary separation between sisters who could have helped each other all these years. What do you know about my life? I know you take care of your mother alone, that you work hard to support both of you, that you gave up studying for it. And I know that Brandon Cooper humiliated you because he thinks you're beneath him. Olivia's words were direct, but Amanda sensed no pity in her voice, only indignation. And you think you can turn me into a princess in a week? Amanda asked with a bitter smile. I don't need to turn you into anything. You're already a queen who just hasn't realized it yet. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, Olivia explained her plan. She had contacts in New York who could lend an elegant dress, knew a makeup artist who owed her favors, and was willing to cover all the costs. But Amanda resisted. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's one sister helping another show who she really is. Amanda spent the rest of the afternoon thinking about the offer. When she got home, she found Mrs. Ruth more cheerful than she'd been in months. Olivia called me, said her mother. We talked for a long time. About what? About you. About how brave and strong you are. About how you deserve good things in life. Amanda sat on the bed beside her mother. Mom, what if everything goes wrong? What if I end up humiliating myself? Sweetheart, you're already humiliating yourself. Every day, serving coffee to people who treat you badly. The difference is that now you have a chance to show you're more than that. The next morning, Amanda called Olivia to accept her help. But the problem started immediately. The dress Olivia had borrowed from a client got stuck in New York traffic and wouldn't arrive on time. The beauty salon they'd booked had an electrical fire. The makeup artist broke her arm in an accident. It's a sign, Amanda said, discouraged. It wasn't meant to work out. Don't give up now, Olivia insisted. We'll find another way. But every solution they came up with ran into a new problem. A dress from a local store cost more than Amanda's monthly salary. The available salons were either too expensive or fully booked. It felt like the universe was conspiring against them. By Wednesday, 3 days before the event, Amanda was ready to quit. The stress was affecting her work at the restaurant, and she'd snapped at 2 customers over nothing. Mrs. Wilson called her aside. Girl, you're not yourself. This whole party business is taking a toll on you. I think I'm going to give up, Mrs. Wilson. There's no way this will work. Can I tell you something about myself that I've never told anyone? Amanda nodded, surprised by the cook's seriousness. When I was young, I worked for a wealthy family here in town. The lady of the house was cruel to me, humiliating me in front of guests. One day she dared me to prepare dinner for her friends, saying I'd never be capable of fine cooking. What happened? I spent a week studying recipes, asking for help from those who knew. That night I made the best meal of my life. The guests praised it so much she had to give me credit in front of everyone. And then? Then I realized I was capable of far more than I'd imagined. And so are you, Amanda. You just have to believe. Mrs. Wilson's words struck Amanda deeply. She realized she wasn't just fighting against Brandon Cooper. She was fighting years of self-doubt, the idea that her place was always to serve, never to be served. On Thursday, another problem arose. Mrs. Ruth fell ill and had to be taken to the hospital. Amanda spent the whole night in the emergency room, and by morning she was exhausted and broke after paying for private tests to speed up treatment. I can't go to the event, she told Olivia over the phone. My mother needs me. Amanda, your mother is stable. The doctors said it was just a scare, and she made me promise not to let you quit. Even if I wanted to go, I don't have money left for anything. I spent it all at the hospital. Olivia was silent for a moment. I'll pay for everything. The dress, the salon, all of it. I can't accept that. Then take it as a loan. Pay me back when you can. Amanda was torn between pride and the desire to show Brandon he'd underestimated the wrong person. In the end, her hunger for justice won. Fine, but it's a loan for real. On Friday, the day before the event, everything that could go wrong did. The dress Olivia had gotten from a New York store tore during the fitting. The salon they'd finally booked cancelled last minute because the owner fell ill. The situation seemed hopeless. Maybe it's better to just give up, Amanda said, holding the pieces of the torn dress. Olivia, who had stayed positive until then, was also disheartened. They sat in Amanda's small apartment, surrounded by broken plans and shattered dreams. That's when Mrs. Ruth, from her bed, spoke with a firm voice that surprised them both. You two are being foolish. Mother? Foolish. Sitting here feeling sorry for yourselves instead of using what you have. Olivia, aren't you a fashion designer? Can't you make a dress? Olivia blinked as if waking from a trance. Of course I can, but I don't have time or materials. And you, Amanda, didn't you work at a school before coming to the restaurant? Amanda remembered the job she had left years ago when her mother fell ill. She had been a secretary at an elite private school where she learned about etiquette and protocol just by observing. I did, but nothing. You have everything you need. Olivia can make a simple dress with whatever she finds. Amanda knows how to carry herself in an elegant setting because she watched for years. The rest is nonsense. The two sisters exchanged glances. Mrs. Ruth was right. They had been so focused on creating a miraculous transformation that they forgot what really mattered. You're right, Mrs. Ruth, said Olivia. I don't need an expensive dress. I need creativity. They worked through the night. Olivia bought fabric from a simple downtown store and used all her skill to create an elegant but understated dress. Amanda practiced her posture and conversation, recalling everything she had learned at the private school. By dawn, they had created something that wasn't perfect, but it was worthy. The simple red dress Olivia had made highlighted Amanda's natural beauty without competing with the expensive jewelry she didn't own. I won't try to be someone I'm not, Amanda said, looking at herself in the mirror. I'll be myself, just the best version possible. On Saturday afternoon, as she got ready, Amanda received an unexpected call. It was the restaurant manager. Amanda, I need you to come in tonight, Jessica called out, and we're packed. I can't today. I have an important commitment. What commitment is more important than work? If you don't come in, you'll need to find another job on Monday. Amanda felt her world collapse. Losing her job meant no way to support her mother, no way to pay the bills. But missing the event meant handing victory to Brandon Cooper. I'm going to the event, she said, hanging up. Olivia, who had overheard, looked worried. Amanda, are you sure it's your livelihood? If I don't go today, I'll never have the courage to face something like this again. And I'd rather go hungry with dignity than live being humiliated. By 7 that evening, Amanda was ready. The simple but well-cut red dress fit her perfectly. Olivia had done a natural makeup look that enhanced her features. She didn't look like a millionaire, but she was elegant and confident. Remember what we talked about, Olivia said. Be yourself. Don't try to impress anyone, just show them who you are. Amanda hugged her sister and said goodbye to her mother, who was moved to see her daughter looking so beautiful. You look stunning, my dear. Now go show that arrogant man who Amanda Johnson is. The Prestige Country Club was in one of the most upscale areas of Philadelphia. When the taxi stopped at the main gate, Amanda felt a pang of insecurity. The cars at the entrance cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. The doorman, seeing she had arrived by taxi, eyed her with visible suspicion. Name? Amanda Johnson. He checked the list twice before finding her name. Invitation? Amanda showed the gold-edged paper Brandon had tossed onto the restaurant table. The doorman examined it as if it were fake, but finally let her pass. Use the side entrance. The main door is for VIP guests. The first humiliation of the event hadn't even officially begun. Amanda took a deep breath and headed to the side door, where other less important guests were entering. The main hall was decorated with expensive flowers and crystal chandeliers. Women dressed in jewelry worth fortunes chatted in groups, while men in tuxedos discussed business. Amanda felt like a fish out of water. Look who decided to show up, said a familiar voice behind her. Amanda turned and saw Brandon Cooper approaching with a sly smile. He was accompanied by two friends who seemed to be waiting for the show he had promised. I must admit, you made an effort, he said, looking her up and down. You almost look like you belong here. Thank you for the invitation, Amanda replied, keeping her head held high. Come, let me introduce you to some people. They'd love to meet a service industry worker. Brandon guided her toward a group of elegant women who stopped talking as she approached. Their gazes were clearly judgmental. Everyone, this is Amanda. She works in the food industry. The women smiled politely but coldly. One of them, a gray-haired lady with understated yet exorbitantly expensive jewelry, asked, How interesting. Which restaurant? Amanda realized Brandon was waiting for her to lie or feel ashamed. At Home Flavor downtown, I'm a waitress. The silence that followed was awkward. Brandon smiled, pleased with the discomfort he had created. Amanda, dear, could you fetch us some drinks? Said one of the women, clearly treating her like staff. Amanda felt anger rising but took a deep breath and replied politely, Of course. What would you like? As she walked toward the bar, she heard whispers and giggles behind her. Brandon had gotten what he wanted. She was being publicly humiliated, treated like hired help at an event where she should have been a guest. At the bar, the waiter served her hastily, clearly annoyed at having to wait on someone who obviously didn't belong there. 4 champagnes, she ordered. Are you sure you can pay for that? He asked quietly. Amanda showed the money she had set aside for emergencies. You bet I can. When she returned with the drinks, the group had grown. Brandon was telling more people about his social experiment, using Amanda as an example of how ordinary people reacted when exposed to luxury. It's fascinating to observe, he said, how someone who's spent their life serving others behaves when placed on the other side. Amanda handed out the drinks and stood there, unsure whether to stay or leave. One of the younger women in the group, noticing her discomfort, asked, Amanda, how long have you been a waitress? 3 years, she answered honestly. And before that? Amanda hesitated. Talking about her past meant revealing personal details to people who clearly saw her as entertainment. I worked other jobs, Brandon cut in, clearly wanting to control the situation. Let's talk about more interesting things. This event is to support Mercy General Hospital. Amanda, have you ever been treated there? The question was asked maliciously, implying she'd only know the hospital as a charity patient. Amanda felt her blood boil, but kept her composure. My mother was treated there after she had a stroke. Ah, so you're familiar with the charity work we do, Brandon said, feigning sympathy. You must be grateful for people like us keeping institutions that help. People like you running. It was at that moment Amanda made a decision. She wasn't just going to endure the humiliation. She was going to show these people who she really was. Actually, she said, raising her voice so more could hear, I know the hospital very well, not just as a patient's family member. Brandon seemed surprised by her change in tone. What do you mean? I worked there, as a volunteer for 5 years before I started at the restaurant. Some people in the group moved closer, curious. Amanda noticed she had captured their attention differently. I used to volunteer in pediatrics, reading stories to the children in the hospital. I also helped organize fundraising events. An older woman who had been listening stepped closer. "What's your last name, dear?" "Johnson. Amanda Johnson." The woman's eyes widened in surprise. "Are you the Amanda who organized the textbook campaign in 2019? Amanda nodded, surprised someone remembered. "I'm Margaret Wilson from the hospital board. You raised over $5,000 selling cakes and snacks you made at home." The whole group stopped to listen. Brandon, who had been steering the conversation, seemed uneasy with the shift. "Do you two know each other?" he asked. "Not personally," Margaret replied, "but I know her work. Amanda mobilized many families in the community to help the hospital. It was one of the most successful campaigns we've ever had." Amanda felt a surge of pride, but also sadness. She'd had to stop volunteering when her financial situation became unsustainable, and she needed to work 2 jobs. "Why did you stop working with us?" Margaret asked. "I had to focus on paid work. My mother got sick, and I'm the only one supporting our household." A respectful silence fell over the group. Amanda's story was taking a very different tone from what Brandon had planned. "And your father?" one of the younger women asked. "He left us when I was 16. Amanda's brutal honesty was making an impact she hadn't expected. The people who minutes earlier saw her as entertainment now looked at her with a mix of respect and admiration. Brandon tried to regain control. "Well, that's a touching story, but let's focus on today's event. We're here to have fun, not listen to personal dramas." Margaret turned to him with a serious expression. "Brandon, stories like Amanda's are exactly why we hold this event. She represents the people we help." Of course," he said, clearly uncomfortable. "But maybe we can discuss this later. Right now is for celebration." Amanda realized Brandon was trying to downplay her presence, redirecting attention away from her. But Margaret wasn't willing to let that happen. "Amanda, tell me more about your current job. What's it like working in the food service industry?" It was a genuine question without malice. Amanda felt encouraged to answer honestly. "It's challenging. I work 10-hour days, 6 days a week. The pay isn't great, but it lets me care for my mother and keep our home." "That must be exhausting," another woman in the group remarked. "It is, but it's also taught me a lot about people. When you serve someone, you see how they treat those in a different position. It says a lot about their character." The words came naturally but carried a subtle message no one missed. Brandon caught the implication and visibly bristled. "What an interesting perspective," he said sarcastically. "I suppose you have plenty of stories about difficult customers." Amanda looked him straight in the eye. "I do. People who think they can belittle others just because they have more money." The tension in the air was palpable. Margaret and the other women sensed something personal between Amanda and Brandon. "Do you know each other?" Margaret asked. "Brandon is a customer at the restaurant where I work," Amanda explained. "He's the one who invited me to this event." "How kind of you, Brandon," Margaret said, though her tone suggested she sensed there was more to the story. Brandon forced a smile. "I like to include diverse people in our events. It's important for everyone to have the opportunity to see how high society behaves." The way he spoke made his true intentions clear. Margaret seemed offended by his attitude. "Amanda, would you like to join our table for dinner?" she asked. "I'd love to chat more about your work at the hospital." "Thank you, but I don't want to intrude," Amanda replied. "It wouldn't be an intrusion at all. It would be a pleasure." Brandon tried to intervene. "Margaret, Amanda already has an assigned seat. We don't want to disrupt the event's organization." "Which table is she at?" Margaret asked. Brandon hesitated. The truth was, he had placed Amanda at a table in the back of the hall, alongside other guests he considered less important. "Table 15, he said reluctantly. Margaret's expression turned disapproving. "Table 15 is practically in the kitchen. Why would you seat one of your guests in such an out-of-the-way spot?" "It was an organizational mistake," Brandon lied. "I'll fix it." "No need," said Amanda. "I'm used to being near the kitchen." Her reply was dignified, but carried an implicit criticism everyone understood. Margaret grew even more indignant. "This is unacceptable. Amanda, you'll sit at my table, I insist." Brandon realized he was losing control of the situation. His plan to humiliate Amanda was backfiring. "Margaret, there's no need to make a scene over seating arrangements." "It's not a scene, Brandon. It's a matter of courtesy. You invite someone to your event and treat them like a second-class citizen." Others were beginning to take notice of the argument. Amanda felt torn between gratitude for Margaret's defense and discomfort at causing a scene. "I don't want to cause trouble," she said. "I can sit where I was assigned." "Absolutely not," said Margaret. "You're my guest now." Just then, a distinguished man in his 60s approached the group. "Margaret, what's going on here?" "Richard, this is Amanda Johnson. She volunteered at the hospital and is being treated improperly." Richard extended his hand to Amanda with a genuine smile. "Richard Thompson, chairman of the hospital board. Margaret has told me a lot about your volunteer work." "Pleasure to meet you," Amanda said, shaking his hand. "The pleasure is mine. People like you are rare these days." Brandon grew increasingly uncomfortable. The situation had spiraled completely out of his control. "Richard, good to see you," he said, trying to shift the conversation. "How are the preparations for the presentation?" "Excellent. In fact, Amanda, would you like to say a few words about your volunteer experience? It's always valuable to hear from those who've worked directly with patients." Amanda was surprised. "I wasn't prepared to speak publicly." "No need for anything formal," Richard reassured her. "Just a few words about what the hospital means to you." Brandon quickly interjected. "Richard, we don't want to tire the guests with too many speeches. Maybe it's best to stick to the original program." "Nonsense," said Margaret. "Hearing Amanda would be far more interesting than the usual political speeches." Amanda felt pressured. Speaking publicly to a high society crowd wasn't in her plans. But at the same time, it was a chance to show she had more to offer than Brandon realized. "If you think it would be interesting," she said hesitantly. "Wonderful," said Richard. "I'll call on you after the main course." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. Dinner was served in a tense atmosphere. Amanda sat at Margaret's table, which included some of the most influential people in the city. Richard was to her right, and an elegant white-haired woman named Elizabeth to her left. "Amanda," said Elizabeth, delicately cutting her salmon, "do you have family here in town?" "I have my mother. She's been bedridden since she had a stroke 3 years ago." "That must be very hard, caring for her alone," Richard remarked. "It is, but she always took care of me. Now it's my turn to take care of her." Elizabeth stopped eating and looked at Amanda more closely. "How old were you when your father passed?" 16. "And you took over the household responsibilities?" "I had no choice. It was either that or watch my mother go without." Margaret leaned forward. "Amanda, may I ask what kind of work you did before becoming a waitress?" Amanda hesitated. Talking about her past meant revisiting abandoned dreams, and that always hurt. "I worked as a secretary at a private school for 2 years. It was a good job, but when my mother got sick, I needed something with more flexible hours and better pay." "Which school?" Elizabeth asked. "St. Mary's Academy." Elizabeth nearly choked on her wine. "St. Mary's? I was the principal there for 15 years. I retired 5 years ago." Amanda felt the world spin. Elizabeth had been her boss, the person she admired most at work. "Mrs. Elizabeth? It's me, Amanda, from the office. I handled the high school students' records." Elizabeth blinked several times, trying to process the information. "Amanda, my goodness, I didn't recognize you. You were always so put together in those black suits." "I've changed a lot," Amanda said with a melancholy smile. "But Amanda, you were excellent. Why did you leave without telling me? One day, you just never came back." Amanda felt her eyes well up. Remembering that time was painful. "My mother had her stroke in the middle of the night. I spent a week at the hospital with her, and when I came back, my position had already been filled. But you could have talked to me. I would have given you medical leave. I tried calling, but they said you were traveling, and after that, it was too embarrassing to reach out again. Elizabeth took Amanda's hand across the table. Sweetheart, forgive me. I should have looked for you, should have found out what happened. Margaret and Richard watched the exchange, moved. Across the room, Brandon was at the main table, but clearly bothered by the attention Amanda was receiving. Amanda, Richard said, so you had some training in business administration? I did 2 years of business school, but I had to drop out when the money ran out. And why did you choose business? Amanda smiled, remembering old dreams. I wanted to have my own company someday. Nothing too big, but something that would give me financial independence and let me help others. What kind of company? Margaret asked. I thought about an event planning business. I've always been good at organizing things, handling details, and I loved when we put together school celebrations. Elizabeth nodded enthusiastically. She was fantastic at it. The graduations Amanda organized were the most beautiful we ever had at the school. Why didn't you pursue that dream? Richard asked. Amanda let out a humorless laugh. With what money? With what time? I worked 10-hour days just to cover basic bills. The silence that followed was heavy. These people were beginning to understand Amanda's reality in a way that went far beyond what Brandon had presented. Amanda, Margaret said slowly, have you ever thought about going back to school? Every day, but college costs money and I can't stop working. There are scholarships, Richard suggested. For those who have time to study for entrance exams, go through the application process, attend classes. My life doesn't allow for that. Elizabeth was thoughtful. Amanda, do you remember the scholarship the school offered to employees? I do, but I wasn't an employee anymore when my mother got sick. But you could be again. Amanda stopped eating. What do you mean? We always need someone good at event planning. And you already know the school. You know my way of working. Mrs. Elizabeth, I can't leave my current job without being sure of another. Of course not. But we can talk on Monday about possibilities. Amanda felt a mix of hope and fear. It was an incredible opportunity, but she had learned not to trust promises too much. I'd love to talk, she said carefully. At that moment, the MC announced it was time for speeches. Richard stood and made his way to the stage, but first stopped by Amanda's side. Are you ready to talk about your experience at the hospital? Amanda's stomach twisted. She looked at the room full of elegant people and felt small again. I don't know if I'm the right person for this. You're exactly the right person, said Margaret. These people need to hear real stories, not just speeches about charity. Richard took the stage and began his speech about the importance of the hospital and the generosity of those present. Then, to Amanda's surprise, he said, Today, we have with us someone who knows the hospital from a very special perspective. Amanda Johnson volunteered for 5 years and can tell us better than I can what it truly means to help those in need. Every eye in the room turned to Amanda. Her legs shook as she stood. Brandon, at the main table, wore a poorly disguised look of panic. Amanda walked to the stage with her heart racing. When she reached the microphone, she looked at the crowd and for a moment thought of running away. But then she saw Margaret smiling encouragingly, Elizabeth nodding, and felt a strength she didn't know she had. Good evening, she began, her voice trembling. My name is Amanda Johnson, and I'm not rich, I don't own a company, I'm not important. I'm a waitress at a downtown restaurant. A murmur spread through the room. Some people seemed unsettled by her raw honesty. But for 5 years, I volunteered at Mercy General Hospital, and I want to tell you what I learned there. Amanda took a deep breath and continued. I learned that pain doesn't choose social class. In pediatrics, I saw rich and poor children sharing the same fear, the same hope. I saw millionaire parents crying just like unemployed parents when their children were sick. The audience was completely silent now. I learned that kindness is worth more than money. There was a nurse named Sarah who earned minimum wage but treated every patient like family, and there were famous doctors who barely looked patients in the eye. Amanda saw some uncomfortable faces in the crowd, but also others who seemed moved by her words. I learned that truly helping isn't just about giving money, It's about giving time, attention, respect. I read stories to hospitalized children, not because I had to, but because they needed to know someone cared. She paused and looked directly at Brandon. And I learned that true nobility doesn't come from a bank account. It comes from what you do when no one's watching, how you treat people who can do nothing for you. The silence was absolute. Amanda felt she had said all she needed to say. All of you here tonight have immense power to do good, not just with money, but with respect, by recognizing the dignity of every person. Mercy General doesn't just need donations. It needs you to see every patient as a human being just like you. Amanda took one last pause. Thank you for letting me speak. And thank you for reminding me today that my worth doesn't diminish when someone tries to humiliate me. She stepped off the stage to a deafening silence. For a moment she thought she had said too much, been too direct. But then Margaret stood up and began to clap. Elizabeth followed, then Richard. And within seconds, the entire room was on their feet, applauding. Amanda returned to her table with tears in her eyes. She had said things she had kept inside for years, had stood her ground in a way she never thought possible. You were perfect, whispered Margaret. You said exactly what needed to be said, Elizabeth added. Across the room, Brandon looked visibly shaken. His attempt to humiliate Amanda had backfired completely. Not only had she defended herself, but she had also exposed his true intentions to the entire local elite. After the speeches, the social part of the event began. Amanda hoped to slip away quietly, but she soon found many people eager to talk to her. One by one, guests approached to praise her speech and ask about her story. You made me rethink my own approach to charity, said an elegant lady. I'd never considered the difference between giving money and giving attention, remarked a businessman. Amanda felt overwhelmed by the positive attention. She was used to being invisible, to serving without being noticed. Being the center of attention in a good way was a new and intense experience. That's when Brandon finally approached her. Can we talk in private? He asked with a forced smile. Amanda hesitated but agreed. They stepped out onto a quieter balcony. Your speech was interesting, he said, clearly uncomfortable. Thank you. But I think you misunderstood my intentions. I wanted to give you an opportunity. Brandon, Amanda interrupted, we both know exactly what your intentions were. You wanted to humiliate me publicly for your own amusement and to impress your friends. He turned red. That's not true. Yes, it is. You seated me at the farthest table, introduced me as a service worker in a demeaning way, and expected me to embarrass myself. You're being dramatic. No, I'm not. And you know what's saddest? You were right about one thing. I really don't belong in this world, but not for the reasons you think. Brandon looked confused. I don't belong here because I can't understand how anyone could take pleasure in humiliating someone else. I can't understand how anyone could think they're worth more just because they were born with money. Amanda. Let me finish. You taught me a lesson today, just not the one you planned. You showed me the difference between having class and having money, between being important and being influential, between being respected and being feared. Brandon fell silent, clearly uneasy with the direction of the conversation. And you know what? I'm grateful for that, because it made me realize I don't need the approval of people like you to have value. People like me. People who think money gives them the right to treat others as entertainment. Just then, Margaret appeared on the balcony. Amanda, sorry to interrupt, but several people want to speak with you. Of course, Amanda said, relieved by the interruption. We're done here. She walked away from Brandon and back into the ballroom. The rest of the evening passed quickly, with Amanda talking to dozens of people who seemed genuinely interested in her story and her volunteer work. As the event was winding down, Elizabeth approached her with a concrete offer. Amanda, I spoke with the other board members at the school. We'd like to offer you a job as events coordinator, with a better salary than the restaurant and flexibility to care for your mother. Amanda felt her heart race. Mrs. Elizabeth, this is very generous, but it's not generosity. It's recognition. You've always been competent, and today You proved you have something many people with degrees lack: character. But I didn't finish college. The school can help with that. We have partnerships with universities that offer discounts for employees. Amanda felt tears in her eyes. This was more than she had dreamed of in years. Can I think about it? Of course, but don't take too long. We need someone good to organize December's graduation. When Amanda finally left the Prestige Country Club, it was past midnight. The taxi Sarah had called was waiting at the door. She got in, still processing everything that had happened. On the way back, she called Sarah to tell her about the evening. "You did it!" Sarah shouted on the other end. "I knew you'd show everyone who you really are." "I still can't believe it happened," Amanda said. "Elizabeth offered me a job at the school. Are you going to accept?" "I think so. It's the chance I've been waiting for all these years." When she got home, she found Mrs. Ruth awake, waiting anxiously. "How did it go, dear?" Amanda sat on the bed and told the whole story, from the initial humiliation to the job offer. Mrs. Ruth cried with emotion. "I always knew you'd make it, Amanda. I was just waiting for the right opportunity. Mom, if I take this job at the school, we'll have a better life. I'll be able to afford better treatment for you, maybe even go back to school. And you'll be able to leave this small apartment, do the things you've always wanted." Amanda hugged her mother. "We'll make it, Mom. We'll finally make it." On Monday morning, Amanda went to the restaurant to say she was leaving. The manager, who had threatened to fire her for missing work on Saturday, was furious. "You can't just quit like this, out of nowhere. You need to give notice." "I can work until Friday," Amanda offered. "That's not enough. It's 2 weeks' notice." Amanda took a deep breath. A few days ago, she would have given in to his demands out of fear of losing a professional reference, but now she knew her worth. "I can work 1 week. That's what the law requires for someone without a formal contract." "Excuse me?" "I've worked here for 3 years without a contract, without labor rights, without paid vacation. 1 week's notice is more than you deserve." The manager turned red but could do nothing. Amanda was right about labor laws. "Fine, but don't count on me for a reference." "I won't need one," Amanda said, walking out with her head held high. On Tuesday, she went to the school to officially speak with Elizabeth. The familiar surroundings brought a wave of nostalgia. She remembered every hallway, every classroom, every detail of the building where she had been happy for 2 years. "Amanda," Elizabeth greeted her with a warm hug. "I'm so glad you came." They talked about the position, the salary, the benefits. It was all better than Amanda had imagined. "When can I start?" "How about next Monday? That'll give you a few days to get organized." Amanda eagerly agreed. Finally, her life was heading in the direction she had always wanted. On Wednesday, she got an unexpected call. It was Margaret. "Amanda, I hope you don't mind that I got your number from Elizabeth." "Of course not. How can I help you?" "Actually, I wanted to help you. I heard you're going back to work at the school, and I thought you might need a few things to get settled." Amanda was suspicious. She didn't want charity, even from well-meaning people. "That's very kind of you, but it's not charity, Amanda. It's an investment. I'm setting up a fund to help competent people restart their careers. You'd be our first beneficiary." "What would that involve?" "Help with professional clothes, study materials for college, maybe an interest-free loan so you can move to a better place." Amanda was moved by the generosity, but still hesitant. "Margaret, can I think about it?" "Of course. There's no rush. But I want you to know there are people who believe in your potential." On Thursday, Amanda had a difficult conversation with Olivia. Her sister had returned to New York, and they were talking on the phone. "Olivia, how can I ever thank you for everything you've done? You don't have to thank me. I'm your sister. But you spent money, time, energy. Amanda, can I tell you something? Helping you did me more good than anything I've done in years." "What do you mean?" "I was in New York feeling empty, working for wealthy, shallow people, thinking success was just about making money. Hearing your story reminded me what really matters." Amanda felt a deep connection with the sister she barely knew. "Olivia, would you like to visit me in a few weeks, once I'm more settled at school? I'd love to, and I want to meet your mother in person. She'll adore you." On Friday, Amanda worked her last day at the restaurant. It felt strange serving the last tables, cleaning the last cups, putting away the apron for the final time. Mrs. Wilson was sad to see her go. "I'll miss you, dear. You were always special. Thank you for everything, Mrs. Wilson, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. I just did what any mother would. Now go out there and show the world what you're made of." At the end of the day, as Amanda was leaving, she ran into Brandon entering the restaurant. They stared at each other in silence for a moment. "Amanda," he said, looking uncomfortable. "Brandon, I heard you're changing jobs." "I am." He hesitated, as if wanting to say something important. "Listen, about last Saturday." "What about last Saturday?" "Maybe I was insensitive." Amanda looked at him curiously. It was the closest thing to an apology he'd ever offered. "Maybe you were. I just want you to know it wasn't personal." "Of course it was personal, Brandon. You specifically chose to humiliate me." He turned red. "I just didn't expect you to be..." "What? A real person with feelings and dignity?" "That's not what I meant." Amanda sighed. She had no energy left for fights. "Brandon, here's some free advice. Next time you want to have fun at someone else's expense, remember everyone has a story, everyone has worth. And maybe, if you tried getting to know people instead of judging them, you'd discover something interesting." She walked past him and left the restaurant for the last time. She didn't look back. On Saturday, Amanda spent the day organizing her belongings and preparing for her new chapter. It was a day of reflection and planning. Mrs. Ruth was more excited than she'd been in months. "Sweetheart, I'm so proud of you. Seeing how you stood up to that arrogant man, how you earned the respect of those important people." "Mom, I was just being myself." "Exactly. And that was enough." Amanda thought about her mother's words. For years, she'd hidden behind hard labor, convinced she didn't deserve better. The event at the Prestige Country Club had been a turning point, not just because of the opportunities it brought, but because it forced her to see herself differently. On Sunday, she woke up early and decided to visit Mercy General Hospital. She missed the place where she'd volunteered and wanted to reconnect with people who had been important in her life. Sarah, the nurse she'd mentioned in her speech, was still working in pediatrics. "Amanda, what a wonderful surprise," she hugged her warmly. "I heard you gave a beautiful speech at that high society event. How did you find out?" "The story is all over the hospital. Margaret Wilson came here yesterday and told everyone how you defended our work." Amanda was moved. She hadn't realized the impact her words had. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think I did the right thing, speaking up like that to those important people?" Sarah looked at her seriously. "Amanda, 5 years ago, you were reading stories to sick children without getting paid for it. You've always known how to do the right thing." They talked for over an hour, and Amanda left the hospital with a sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt in a long time. On Monday, Amanda officially started at the school. Elizabeth greeted her with a tidy desk, work materials, and a list of projects to organize. "Your first mission is the December graduation," Elizabeth explained. "We have 200 graduates and their families want something memorable." Amanda looked at the task list and felt at home. It was exactly the kind of work she had always loved doing. "Can I suggest some changes to the traditional format?" she asked. "Of course, I trust your judgment." During the first few weeks, Amanda threw herself completely into her new job. She redesigned the graduation ceremony, created a more efficient system for organizing school events, and even suggested improvements in parent communication. Elizabeth was impressed. "Amanda, you have excellent ideas. Have you ever considered taking an event management course?" "I've thought about it, but..." "The school can cover it. We have a budget for staff training." It was another incredible opportunity. Amanda accepted without hesitation. A month after starting at the school, Amanda got a call from Margaret. "Amanda, how are you adjusting to the new job?" "Really well, thank you. I'm loving it." "That's wonderful. I have a proposal for you." "What is it?" "The hospital board is organizing a series of talks about volunteering. We'd like you to speak about your experience. Amanda hesitated. Public speaking still made her nervous. "I'm not sure I'm the right person." "You're exactly the right person. Your speech at the gala inspired so many people. We already have 15 people interested in volunteering because of what you said." That argument convinced Amanda. If her words could inspire others to help, it was worth the discomfort. When would it be? "Next Saturday morning. It's a small gathering, about 30 people." Amanda agreed. The following week, she carefully prepared her talk, thinking about how to convey not just her experience, but the importance of volunteer work. The hospital auditorium was full when she arrived. To her surprise, she recognized several people from the charity gala in the audience. Her presentation felt more natural this time. She shared specific stories about patients she'd met, explained how volunteering had changed her outlook on life, and answered questions from the crowd. Afterward, a young woman in her 20s approached. "Your speech really moved me. My name is Jessica. I'm a medical student. I'd like to start volunteering, but I don't know where to begin." Amanda spent the next few minutes guiding Jessica through the volunteer application process. It was rewarding to pass on the knowledge she'd gained. In the months that followed, Amanda's life took a completely new direction. Her work at the school was going exceptionally well. She'd started the event management course, and she was planning to move to a bigger apartment with her mother. Mrs. Ruth was also doing better. With the health insurance the school provided, she was attending physical therapy and had partially regained movement in her right arm. "Sweetheart," she said one day, "do you know what makes me happiest?" "What, Mom?" "Seeing you smile again." It had been years since you truly smiled. Amanda realized it was true. Over the past few months, she had rediscovered the joy of working with something she loved, of feeling valued, of having prospects for the future. In December, the graduation Amanda organized was an absolute success. The families praised every detail, from the decorations to the event's organization. Elizabeth was radiant. "Amanda, you exceeded all expectations. I'm already excited to see what you'll create for next year's graduation." After the graduation, Amanda decided to make a special visit. She went to Home Flavor to see Mrs. Wilson. The restaurant was the same, but Amanda felt like a completely different person from the waitress who had left there 6 months earlier. "Sweetheart," Mrs. Wilson hugged her emotionally. "How beautiful you look. So elegant. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. I came to thank you for everything you did for me." "I didn't do anything, Amanda. I just believed in what I saw. You gave me courage when I needed it. That meant everything." They talked for over an hour, and Amanda shared all the changes in her life. "And that arrogant man, have you seen him again?" "No, and I hope I don't anytime soon." But fate had other plans. The following week, Amanda was leaving the school when she saw Brandon standing on the sidewalk, clearly waiting for her. "Amanda, can I talk to you?" She hesitated but agreed. "What do you want, Brandon?" "I wanted to apologize. For real this time." Amanda looked at him in surprise. He seemed genuinely remorseful. "Why?" "Because I've spent these months thinking about what you said, about what you did that Saturday, and I realized you were right about me." "In what way?" "I really tried to humiliate you for fun, and that's despicable." Amanda stayed silent, waiting for him to continue. "I talked to my mother about that night. She told me she was ashamed of my behavior, said she raised me better than that." "And what do you want from me now?" "Nothing. I just wanted you to know you taught me an important lesson, and that I regret trying to belittle you." Amanda studied him for a moment. He seemed sincere, but she had learned to be cautious. "Brandon, I accept your apology, but I hope you've truly learned something, not just about me, but about how to treat people in general. I have. I started volunteering at the hospital too, once a week." Amanda was surprised. "Really? Really?" "Margaret Wilson convinced me. Said I needed to understand in practice what you talked about in your speech. And how is it?" "Hard, humiliating sometimes, but necessary." Amanda felt he was being honest. "I'm glad to hear that." "Amanda, can I ask you something?" Go ahead. Do you forgive me? The question caught her off guard. Amanda thought for a moment before answering. Brandon, forgiveness isn't something you ask for. It's something you earn through real changes in behavior. If you've truly changed, you don't need my forgiveness. If you haven't, forgiveness won't make a difference. So you're saying you don't forgive me? I'm saying true forgiveness is about change, not words. Brandon nodded, seeming to understand. Thank you for talking to me, and congratulations on your success at the school. I heard you organized an amazing graduation. How did you know? Philadelphia is a small town. People talk. Amanda smiled. It was true the town was small and news traveled fast. Thank you. They parted civilly, and Amanda continued on her way home. It was strange how the encounter had defied her expectations. Brandon seemed genuinely changed, but she wasn't in a hurry to trust him again. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In January, Amanda began the second semester of her event management course. The school had secured a partial scholarship for her at a private university, and she was thrilled to be studying again. During the first few days of class, she noticed she was one of the few students who actually worked in the field. Most were recent high school graduates who still weren't sure what they wanted to do in life. During a lesson on team management, the professor asked students to share practical experiences. Amanda was one of the few who could provide real-life examples of situations she'd faced. Amanda, the professor said after class, your contributions have been incredibly valuable. Would you be interested in giving a presentation on organizing school events for the class? It would be my pleasure. Preparing the presentation was an interesting exercise. Amanda realized she'd gained far more hands-on knowledge than she'd thought. Her experience at the restaurant, the school, and as a volunteer all contributed to a well-rounded understanding of the field. The presentation was a success, and several classmates approached her afterward for advice on personal projects. In February, Amanda received an unexpected offer. One of the school parents, a construction business owner, reached out to her to organize a Sweet 16 party for his daughter. Amanda, your work on the graduation was flawless. We'd like to hire you for a private event. I'm honored, but I work exclusively for the school. Could you do it on weekends? We'll pay well. Amanda discussed the possibility of taking on extra work with Elizabeth. The principal not only approved, but encouraged her. Amanda, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to apply what you're learning in college, and it could be the start of an independent career in the future. The Sweet 16 party turned out to be a bigger challenge than Amanda had anticipated. There were 300 guests, a live orchestra, and an elaborate themed decoration. But she planned meticulously and managed to create a memorable event. The success of the party led to more invitations. Within weeks, Amanda was organizing private events every weekend. Sweetheart, Mrs. Ruth said one Sunday, aren't you overworking yourself? A little, Mom, but it's a good kind of tired. I'm doing what I love and saving money. For what? Amanda smiled. For our new home. She had started looking at small houses in nicer neighborhoods. Between her school salary and the extra income from events, she could afford a more comfortable place for herself and her mother. In March, while organizing a wedding, Amanda got a call from Olivia. Amanda, I have some news. What? I'm moving to Philadelphia. Amanda nearly dropped the phone. What do you mean? I got a job at a bridal boutique here in town. The owner is a friend of one of my clients from New York. But you're leaving New York? Your career there? My career there was making me unhappy. I want a fresh start near my family. Near you. Amanda was moved. Having her sister close by would be wonderful. When do you arrive? Next week, and I already have a proposal for you. What? The boutique also handles weddings. The owner wants to see your work. Maybe we can collaborate. Yet another opportunity was unfolding. Amanda's life was changing so fast that sometimes she could barely keep up. The following week, Amanda met Samantha, the owner of the bridal boutique. She was an elegant woman in her 50s who had built a solid business over 2 decades. "Olivia showed me photos of the events you've organized," Samantha said. "Impressive for someone just starting out." "Thank you. I have a proposal. How about a partnership? I refer clients to you, you refer clients to me, and for large events, we can work together." Amanda liked the idea. It was a way to grow her business without giving up the security of her job at the school. "I accept." The partnership with the boutique multiplied the number of events Amanda organized. By April, she was handling 2 or 3 weddings a month, in addition to school events. The extra money allowed her and Mrs. Ruth to move into a small but comfortable house in a residential neighborhood. For the first time in years, each had her own bedroom and there was space to host visitors. "Amanda," Mrs. Ruth said on moving day, "I never thought I'd see this day." "What day, Mom?" "The day your dreams would come true." Amanda looked around the new house and felt a deep sense of accomplishment. It wasn't a mansion, but it was theirs, earned through hard work and persistence. In May, something unexpected happened. While organizing a wedding, the bride mentioned she had invited that famous businessman from Philadelphia to the ceremony. "Which businessman?" Amanda asked, curious. "Brandon Cooper. He's a friend of the groom's family." Amanda's stomach tightened. Working an event where Brandon would be present would test her professional maturity. On the wedding day, she mentally prepared herself for a possible encounter. She was focused on her work when Brandon approached her during the cocktail hour. "Amanda, what a surprise to see you here. I'm working. I organized this wedding." Brandon looked impressed. "Really? Everything is perfect. Very elegant." "Thank you." He hesitated for a moment. "Amanda, may I ask how your new career is going?" "Very well, thank you." "I'm glad to hear that. You deserve success." Amanda looked at him in surprise. The conversation was civil, respectful. "Thank you, Brandon. If you ever need contacts or referrals, don't hesitate to reach out. I know I can trust your work." It was a genuine offer of professional help. Amanda felt torn between surprise and gratitude. "I'll keep that in mind." The rest of the wedding went smoothly, and Amanda realized she had maintained her professionalism even in the presence of someone who had once tried to humiliate her. A few weeks later, she received an unexpected call. "Amanda, my name is William Cooper. I'm Brandon's father." Amanda was stunned. "How can I help you?" "My wife and I would like to hire you to organize our golden anniversary party. Brandon spoke very highly of your work." It was an awkward situation, organizing a party for the parents of the man who had tried to humiliate her. "May I ask how you got my contact?" "Brandon gave it to us. He said you're the best event planner in town." Amanda decided to accept. It was a job like any other, and she couldn't mix personal feelings with professionalism. The Coopers' golden anniversary party was one of the largest events Amanda had ever organized. 500 guests at an elegant club, with sophisticated decor and high-end entertainment. During the party, Mrs. Patricia, Brandon's mother, approached Amanda. "Dear, I want to thank you personally. This party is wonderful. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Brandon told me about you, about what happened at that charity gala." Amanda tensed, unsure what to expect. "He told me he was rude to you, that he tried to humiliate you, and he told me how you defended yourself with dignity." "Mrs. Patricia?" "No, let me finish. I want you to know I was ashamed of my son's behavior. That's not how I raised him." Amanda was moved by the woman's sincerity. "Thank you for saying that. And I want you to know that he changed a lot after that day. He started volunteering, began treating employees differently. You taught him a lesson I couldn't in 30 years. I'm glad to hear he changed. He really did. And I wanted to thank you for that." The conversation with Mrs. Patricia touched Amanda deeply. She realized her actions that night at the Prestige Country Club had consequences she never imagined. During the newlywed speech, Mr. William publicly acknowledged Amanda's work, praising her competence and professionalism. It was a significant moment of recognition for her career. After the party, Brandon approached to say goodbye. "Amanda, thank you for organizing this celebration. My parents are overjoyed." It was a pleasure working with them. And thank you also for, well, for teaching me a lesson that Saturday. I needed to hear that." Amanda looked into his eyes and saw genuine sincerity. "Brandon, we all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them." I did. And I hope one day we can be, not friends, but at least people who respect each other. I think we already are. It was the last meaningful conversation they shared. From then on, their lives followed parallel but separate paths. In June, Amanda graduated top of her class in event management. Elizabeth and Mrs. Ruth were in the audience, proud of her achievement. "Sweetheart," Mrs. Ruth said after the ceremony, "your father should be here to see what you've become." "Mom, I don't need his approval. I have yours, Olivia's, and Mrs. Elizabeth's. That's more than enough." During their July vacation, Amanda decided to take a trip with her mother. It was the first time in years they could afford to travel. They stayed at a lodge in Aspen, spending a week relaxing and talking about life. "Amanda," Mrs. Ruth said one chilly morning, "can I tell you something I've never shared?" "Of course, Mom. When your father left us, I thought our lives were over. I believed you'd never get an education, that we'd always struggle, that I'd be a burden to you." "Mom, let me finish. Now, looking at you, I see our hardest times actually made us stronger. You became an incredible woman, not despite the obstacles, but because of them. You were incredible too, Mom. You taught me never to give up. And you taught me dreams are worth fighting for, no matter how long they take to come true." In August, Amanda made an important decision. She officially opened her own event planning business. "Are you sure?" Elizabeth asked. "You could keep working at the school and doing events on the side." "I'm sure it's time to fly solo." Elizabeth, who had become a mentor and friend, supported her choice. "I'll miss you, but I know you'll succeed. I'll always be grateful for what you did for me. You just needed an opportunity. The talent was always there." The company Amanda Johnson Events was registered in September, a simple name, but it represented everything she had achieved. Olivia became her unofficial partner, handling visuals, while Amanda focused on planning. In her first month as an independent business owner, Amanda organized 5 events and was booked through December. "I can't believe how well this is going," she told Olivia. "Yes, you can. You always knew it would work." In October, Amanda received a special invitation. Margaret Wilson wanted her to organize a charity dinner for the hospital. "It would be an honor," Amanda said, "but this time you won't just be the planner. We want you to be one of the honorees." "What do you mean?" "We're recognizing people who've made significant contributions to the hospital. Your volunteer work and the impact of your speech at last year's gala deserve recognition." Amanda was moved. Being honored at an event she herself would organize was a surreal situation. The charity dinner was held in November and brought together 300 people. Amanda had outdone herself in the planning, creating an elegant yet welcoming event. When the time came for the tributes, Amanda took the stage with a mix of nerves and pride. "A year ago," said Margaret as she introduced her, "Amanda Johnson reminded us that true nobility comes from character, not bank accounts. Today, she shows us that persistence and dignity can transform any life." Amanda received a recognition plaque and a standing ovation. From the stage, she saw familiar faces in the audience: Elizabeth, Olivia, Mrs. Wilson, even Brandon and his parents. "When I accepted that invitation a year ago," she said into the microphone, "I thought I was walking into my public humiliation. In truth, I was walking into my path." She paused, emotional. "I learned that sometimes we need to go through difficult situations to discover our own strength. I learned that dignity isn't something anyone can take from us. And I learned that it's always worth fighting for our dreams, no matter how long it takes." As she finished her speech, Amanda stepped down and was greeted by dozens of people. It was a public acknowledgement of the transformation she had lived. Later, during the cocktail hour, Brandon approached her once more. "Amanda, your speech was inspiring. Thank you. Can I say something without sounding presumptuous?" Go ahead. I think that night at the Prestige Country Club was important for both of us. You discovered your strength, I discovered my weakness. Amanda studied him carefully. And what did you do with that discovery? I tried to become a better person. I don't know if I succeeded, but I tried. From what I've seen tonight, you did. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. It was the last conversation they had. Amanda realized she had definitively closed that chapter of her life. In December, exactly a year after the fateful encounter at the restaurant, Amanda reflected on the transformation she had undergone. She had her own company, lived in a comfortable home with her mother, and had a full schedule of events for the coming year. Mrs. Ruth had almost fully regained mobility in her arm and was attending physical therapy 3 times a week. Olivia had settled permanently in Philadelphia, and her bridal boutiques were thriving. The 2 sisters had developed a close relationship and supported each other. Amanda, Mrs. Ruth said on Christmas Eve, what do you want for the coming year? I want our company to grow. I want to finish college. I want to travel more with you. And personally, don't you think about dating, marriage, children? Amanda smiled. She had been so focused on rebuilding her career that she'd barely thought about romance. If the right person comes along, of course, but I'm not desperate. I've learned we first need to be at peace with ourselves. Are you at peace with yourself? Amanda thought for a moment. I am, Mom. For the first time in a long while, I truly am at peace with myself. On December 31st, Amanda hosted a small New Year's gathering at her home. She invited Elizabeth, Margaret, Richard, Olivia, Mrs. Wilson, and a few other friends she'd made over the year. At midnight, as everyone toasted to the new year, Amanda felt a sense of wholeness she hadn't experienced in years. What do you wish for the new year? Olivia asked. I wish to keep being the person I became this year. I wish never to let anyone make me feel small again. And I wish for all women to discover their own strength, as I discovered mine. When the guests had left and Amanda was alone with her mother tidying up the house, Mrs. Ruth made an observation. Sweetheart, did you notice you didn't mention Brandon once tonight? I really didn't. Does that mean you've completely moved on from that whole situation? Amanda paused to think. It means that chapter doesn't define me anymore. It was important because it forced me to change, but now it's part of the past. And what defines you now? My work, my family, my dignity, my fulfilled dreams. Things no one can take from me. Amanda looked out the living room window and saw fireworks lighting up the Philadelphia sky. It was the start of a new year, but more than that, it was the continuation of a new life she had built with her own hands. She thought about the humiliated waitress she had been a year earlier and barely recognized that person in herself, not because she had denied her past, but because she had transformed her pain into strength, her humiliation into dignity, her obstacles into opportunities. Mom, she said, hugging Mrs. Ruth, thank you for never letting me give up. Sweetheart, you never needed me not to let you. You always knew you were stronger than you realized. Amanda smiled and looked out the window once more. Outside, a new life awaited her. A life she had earned not by luck or favor, but through persistence, dignity, and the courage to be who she truly was. The waitress who had walked into the Prestige Country Club a year earlier, afraid and insecure, had become the confident businesswoman who now planned her future with optimism. And most importantly, she had done it without losing her essence, without letting the humiliations turn her bitter, without allowing success to make her forget where she came from. Amanda Johnson had discovered that true transformation doesn't happen when we change who we are, but when we finally become who we've always been inside, but never had the courage to show. And that was a lesson she would carry with her forever, no matter how many successes or obstacles still lay ahead. The end of the story. So, what did you think of Amanda's incredible journey of transformation? Did her story touch your heart as much as it touched mine? Share in the comments which part moved you the most, and if you've ever been through a similar situation. Don't forget to like this video to support our work, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other inspiring stories like this one.